Congratulations on acquiring your new tomato plant seedling. Wherever you have purchased your plant, at our annual Great Tomato Plant Sale, from your local nursery or big box store, or if you grow it from seed next to a window in your home, we've got some ideas to start you on the way to having your best tomato harvest ever. Let's get started. First, I want to remind you of our 4 foundations of success. We refer to these practices as good cultural care. Number 1 is soil. Soil is the basis for a healthy garden. It is home to an entire system of living things. Fungi, bacteria, earthworms, plant roots. Keep it healthy. Number 2 is water. Consistent moisture in the soil is key. We all know that too much or too little water can be dangerous for plants. Number 3 is aeration. Many people underappreciate the importance of the air in our soil. And yet, without the pore spaces in the soil, which allow the plants to obtain oxygen and the living things that live in the soil to breathe, the plants will not survive. Take care of those pore spaces. Number 4 is sun. Last but not least, energy from the sun is a driver for plant growth. Just as for water, though, too much or too little sunshine can cause problems. In the larger context, soil and air temperatures, which are critical for plant health, are also determined by sunlight. Tomato plants like sunshine. Depending on the variety, they will need at least 6 to 8 hours of sunshine most days. Choose the brightest part of your garden for your tomato plants. Watch out for shade from tall trees, and remember that the sun's trajectory will move higher and more north during the summer. If your only available in-ground planting space is in the shade, think about planting in a container if you have sunshine elsewhere on your property. If you are planting in a new location, it's a good idea to check the drainage at your preferred site. If the soil doesn't drain well, your new plants may drown. Check the drainage by digging a hole 1 foot deep and wide. Fill the hole with water and allow to drain overnight. The next morning, refill your hole with water, and then measure every hour until the hole is empty. If the hole drains more slowly than 1 inch per hour, think about planting elsewhere or in a raised bed. Drainage problems can result from heavily compacted clayey soil or a hardpan layer. Even if the soil drains reasonably well, if it is difficult to dig into, use a broad fork, garden fork, or shovel to loosen the soil at the surface where you want to plant. Remove any weeds and diseased plants from the site. If you are planting in your existing veggie garden, try to disturb the soil as little as possible when you plant your tomato plant. No rototilling is recommended. Remember that soil is home to an interconnected network of biological life that will help to nourish and protect your plant. It may also be home to a multitude of buried weed seeds and propagating plant parts that you don't want to expose to the light of day. Before you plant, remove any weeds or diseased plants, roots and all. If the site has undiseased winter garden veggie plants or cover crops, you can compost in place and make a green manure. This will take a few weeks, so start your site preparation early. Cut the plants out at the base and chop them into smaller pieces. Cover with a layer of compost. Put burlap over this to conserve moisture and reduce sunlight and speed up the composting process. Don't plant your tomato seedling until the soil warms up and all risk of frost is past. The optimal temperature for planting is 60 degrees and above. When soils reach that temperature depends not only on the climate of your planting location, but also on the soil type. Sandy soil will warm earlier than clay soils. Soil will warm up earlier in a raised bed. Use a soil temperature probe if you have one, or repurpose your digital meat thermometer like I have here. Insert it into the soil to check the temperature about 4 inches from the surface. Check in the early morning when soils are coolest. The soil temperature will register at 60 degrees, usually only after daytime highs are consistently above 60 degrees and overnight temperatures stay above 50 degrees. In Contra Costa County, this happens in late April or early May. In any event, transplant seedlings by the end of May, so you have time for full tomato production. While you wait to plant your seedling, don't let it become pot-bound. Move your plants into containers that give them more room for healthy root growth. Transplanting into 4-inch quart or even gallon sizes is often necessary. To check if your plant needs a larger pot, gently tap the sides of the container it is in and carefully slide it out, roots, soil, and all, to look at the root growth. Can you see a good collection of roots starting to spread into the soil? Transplant your seedling into larger containers before the roots begin to circle the edge of the container or become matted or, oh dear, grow out of the drain holes. Place the root ball in the center at the very bottom of your container and fill the pot with potting mix up to about 3/4 of an inch from the top. Use a good quality potting mix and avoid using soil from your garden. Seedlings that have been grown in a greenhouse, indoors under lights, or other protected environments need to be hardened off. This is a process used to acclimate your young plants and seedlings to the conditions outdoors. You don't want to move plants quickly from a nice warm environment directly into the colder ground. Start about 2 weeks before planting when temperatures are starting to warm up and move plants outdoors to a shady protected spot. Start for about 2 to 3 hours and gradually increase the amount of time in the sun and outdoors. The last day or two, the plants can spend 24 hours outside. Reduce the amount of water plants receive, but do not allow them to wilt. Avoid placing seedlings outdoors on windy days. Give your new tomato plant a good soak before you plant, preferably the night before. Your plant will want to be well hydrated before moving to its new location. Cut off lower side branches so that you only have foliage on the top third of your plant. Notice that I'm using scissors here, which is a safer process than clipping it off with your fingers. Also, remove any fruit and flowers. The plant's first priority should be to develop a good root structure. Sacrificing the fruit now will result in more fruit later. Then remove the plant carefully from the pot, handling the plant by the root ball instead of by the stem. Gently fluff the roots so that they no longer conform to the pot shape. You want them to extend into the garden soil. Remove and place the plant stake to the side at the last minute before you plant your tomatoes so that you don't misplace it or bury it while you are planting. You want to remember which variety you have planted. Choose a cool, cloudy day to transplant, or like in this photo, wait until late in the day when the sun is low in the sky. You will want to plant your tomato plant deeply. Tomato plants will grow roots along the part of the stem that's buried. A tomato plant that develops a wide network of plants will be stronger and more resilient. Try to dig a hole not deeper than 12 inches, but deep enough to bury the plant up to its upper leaves. Carefully transfer your plant into the soil by holding its root ball. Fill in with the soil you have removed from the hole. Don't step in the planting area or tamp down the soil too tightly. Remember those pore spaces in your soil. If your plant is taller, you can dig a trench with one end deeper than the other. Place the root ball at the deeper end and gently bend the top of the plant so it faces up. It will straighten up as it reaches for the sun. Mark where your root ball is, perhaps with a plant tag like I have here, so that you don't pierce the root ball with your tomato cage. If you have more than one plant to plant, separate the holes by at least 3 feet. Tomato plants like to stretch out. Because of their rapid growth, tomatoes will benefit from amending the soil at planting time. Add nitrogen-based organic vegetable fertilizer according to the package directions. Either add it to the soil you have removed and will replace, or scratch it into the bottom of your hole or trench. Be careful to avoid contact between the tomato roots and unmixed fertilizer. That fertilizer can burn the roots. If the soil is dry, add water to the hole and let it drain. And then place in your plant. Fill in the hole with the soil you have removed and water that soil thoroughly. Add mulch around the base of the plant to a depth of a couple of inches. You can use any organic products, straw, not hay, it contains grass seeds, cardboard, shredded newspaper, burlap bags. This will help to keep the soil moist and cool. On a hot summer's day, unmulched soil can be up to 50 degrees hotter than soil that has a protective mulch layer. Give your plants some shade after planting in the ground. It is difficult to completely avoid damaging a plant's root hairs when transplanting. Roots hairs are necessary to take up water and nutrients. Giving your plants some shade in the hottest part of the day for the first 5 to 7 days after transplanting will help keep them cooler while they regrow their root hairs. You can use a shade cloth or an umbrella or whatever you have around that will help. This is also a good thing to do throughout the summer growing season when the temperature exceeds 95 degrees. Finally, at this time or in a few short weeks, add tomato cages or other support structures to keep the plant from falling over. Don't wait too long as it gets increasingly hard to fit the cage over the plant's branches the larger it gets. Also, sort out your watering plan. Whether by drip irrigation or hand watering, you will want to water the soil around your tomato plants deeply and relatively infrequently. Depending on the weather, established tomato plants may only need to be watered once a week. It's a good idea, though, every few days to check the soil's moisture, not at the surface, but at about 4 inches down. Good luck with your new tomato plant. If you have any gardening problems or questions and you live in Contra Costa County, please feel free to email us. And thank you for listening to this video.